Welcome to Spoiled Vision Movie Recaps. In this review, we'll explore the 2022 action thriller, Weak Hero Class 1. Spoiler alert, proceed with caution. The movie commences with Scene, a high school student who stands out as the brightest in his class. Scene maintains a reserved, introverted persona, dedicating the majority of his time to studies. Regrettably, he lacks friends at school due to his remarkable intelligence, making him unpopular among his classmates. This is in stark contrast to his classmate, young Ben, who is highly respected by the class. Despite his reputation as a troublemaker, young Ben and his group frequently engage in bullying and even extortion of their fellow students. However, Scene's extraordinary achievements go unnoticed, and he is treated with disdain. Notably, even when Scene excels in a mathematics competition, receiving the first-place award, no applause ensues. Yet when young Ben secures third place, the class erupts in applause, revealing the skewed dynamics. Despite his isolation, Scene maintains his resilience. Young Ben becomes increasingly jealous of Scene, particularly after Scene outperforms him in the mathematics competition. Despite the threats and intimidation, Scene remains unfazed by young Ben and his group. Trouble arises when the school's baseball team seeks to avenge an incident involving Suho, a fellow student, who allegedly beat up some of their friends. A confrontation unfolds with baseball bats, but Suho's MMA fighting background enables him to prevail. Suho's father takes pride in his son's accomplishments, but Suho remains unsatisfied with his life due to loneliness. Scene's family situation adds to his isolation, as he only lives with his father following their parents' divorce. His father's busy work schedule and his mother's distance education teaching exacerbate Scene's lack of affection and connection with his parents. He can only watch videos of his mother to maintain some semblance of contact. The following morning, Scene arrives at school early and discovers Suho asleep in their classroom. In the absence of his tracksuit, Scene suspects young Ben of theft, forcing him to wear his uniform for physical education class. Although Scene excels in other subjects, physical education remains a challenge for him. After the physical education class, Scene confronts young Ben and his group, requesting that they leave him be. In response, young Ben and his associates feel humiliated, resorting to threats and intimidation. A teacher intervenes, halting the confrontation, and young Ben's group insists it was all in jest. A transfer student named Bamsuk joined Scene's class, having moved from an elite high school. However, Bamsuk chose not to disclose his affluent background to avoid exploitation. Scene approached young Ben, asking him to vacate his desk, which left young Ben irritated. In response, Scene took a pen for self-defense in case young Ben became aggressive. Suho, having had his sleep disrupted by young Ben's group, rebuked them, telling them to be quiet. As was their routine, young Ben and his group frequented a club and purchased drugs. Young Ben met his cousin, a drug dealer, who explained the effects of the fentanyl they had ordered if it were applied to the skin: confusion, dizziness, blurred vision, nausea, and vomiting. On an exam day, with Scene well prepared, young Ben arrived late and invited Bamsuk to the school canteen under the pretext of meeting the homeroom teacher. There, young Ben coerced Bamsuk into applying fentanyl to Scene's neck. During the exam, Bamsuk tapped Scene's neck from behind, claiming there was a fly. Initially angered, Scene refocused on the exam, but his vision became blurred and concentration waned. He left for the bathroom and discovered the fentanyl on his neck. Upon returning to the classroom, Scene realized the substance on his neck and resorted to slapping his cheek to regain focus, leaving his classmates bewildered. After the exam, Scene found a single incorrect answer, leading to his frustration. He attacked young Ben and one of his friends relentlessly with a pen, leaving young Ben injured and bleeding. The class watched in silence, with no one daring to intervene. As Scene tried to step on young Ben's face, Suho intervened, pushing him away. A teacher arrived, and young Ben had to be hospitalized. Scene was taken by his teacher to apologize to young Ben's parents, but young Ben's mother scolded him angrily. Scene confronted young Ben and revealed that he had been drugged with fentanyl during the examination. Initially, young Ben denied any involvement, but Scene proved his claim by finding a box of fentanyl in young Ben's bag. Young Ben's mother was shocked to discover this. As a result, the school decided to transfer young Ben to another school and agreed to keep the incident of drug use by their student a secret to protect their reputation. When Sean returned home, he remained silent about the school incident. His father suspected that Sean had been in a fight, but thought it was a typical teenage occurrence. The following day, two of young Ben's friends approached Sean with anger and asked to meet him after school. Without fear, Sean agreed to meet them immediately, not waiting until school was over. In the bathroom, Sean closed the door, and his classmates couldn't see them. Unbeknownst to them, Sean had his favorite weapon, his pen. As he approached them, they became intimidated, remembering his previous out-of-control episode. Sean didn't attack them. He simply told them to leave him alone. Upon leaving the bathroom, Sean received praise from his classmates for defeating young Ben and his group. Sean was annoyed by their sudden friendliness since they had previously ostracized him. Meanwhile, young Ben was visited by his cousin, Seok-dae, who warned him not to overdo things. Young Ben asked Seok-dae to meet him later, offering payment for a job. On his way home, Sean saw Soo working part-time as a food delivery courier at a restaurant after school. He chose to sleep at school instead of returning home to avoid being late to school. Upon learning about Soo's story, Sean no longer woke him up in the morning, appreciating his efforts. This brought Sean and Soo closer together, although Sean remained reserved with others. Seok-dae approached Sean to discuss the job he had offered the previous day, as Seok-dae was a member of a debt collection agency, willing to take on high-paying jobs. Bam-suk also attempted to apologize to Sean for his actions. He volunteered to accompany CNN to another school for tutoring, but when he offered, CNN was ignored. Suddenly, young Ben and Seok-dae's gang stopped CNN. They took him with them after Bum-suk saw this and immediately reported it to Soo. Initially, Soo didn't care as it wasn't his concern, and he had to go to work. However, when Bum-suk offered to double his salary, Soo changed his mind. He began searching for CN in a quiet alley. In that alley, CN was being intimidated by Seok-dae and his gang. CN, known for his calculated actions, managed to fend them off, but when he let his guard down, he was attacked again. Young Ben seized this opportunity to exact revenge by relentlessly beating CN and attempting to injure his hands to prevent him from studying. Fortunately, Soo arrived to rescue CN, defeating young Ben and his friends with his skills. However, the conflict was far from over. Seok-dae challenged Soo to one-on-one fights. When young Ben and his friends saw this, they were eager to attack CN again. The situation grew more dire as young Ben tried to attack CN with a bottle. Soo was unable to stop him, as Seok-dae continued to assault him. Thankfully, Bum-suk arrived just in time to save CN. Seok-dae finally relented, allowing CN and his friends to go. Meanwhile, young Ben, realizing he had lost, stood aside. Following the incident, CN and the others grew closer. Soo took Bum-suk and CN to the restaurant where he worked, asking for their help since they had made him late for work. They spent the evening having dinner there, although CN remained reserved as usual. Seok-dae's boss, Gil-soo, was furious about the incident and was displeased that Seok-dae took on another job. He punished Seok-dae by striking his hand with a block of wood. Later, Seok-dae met young Ben and asked him to bring CN to him. CN encountered Yanji, a member of Seok-dae's gang, shoplifting at a supermarket. Despite noticing her, he pretended not to see and ignored her. As he was about to leave after buying an umbrella, young Hee, who was friendly, asked CN to join her at a restaurant. CN had no choice but to accept her offer. She confessed her crush on CN and asked for his phone number. Gil-soo was collecting debts from a high school student who had used his mother's car as collateral because he couldn't pay his debts. Even after offering the car as collateral, Gil-soo continued to threaten him, stating he would harm the student and his parents if the debts weren't paid within 3 days. The following day, as young Bin was packing his belongings in the classroom, he approached CN for a conversation. It turned out that young Bin wanted CN to act as a witness in court, testifying that he didn't possess any fentanyl. He hoped to avoid being placed in a youth detention center and explained that he was the sole support for his parents. Feeling sympathetic, CN agreed to help. CN and his friends headed to court with young Bin, but he took them to the parking lot of a building. Raising suspicions, they soon realized that young Bin had lied and tricked them into meeting Gilsoo and his gang. Gilsoo demanded $15,000 from them, citing his lack of health insurance to cover Sukdae's injured hand. However, Soo recalled that Gilsoo was the one who had severely injured Sukdae's hand and then wrongly blamed Suhu. Gilsoo had orchestrated this to extract money from Cien and his friends, giving them 3 days to pay up. They witnessed the cunning and manipulative nature of Gilsoo, who even threatened their lives if they refused to comply. Subsequently, Cien contacted Young-hee to discuss their predicament and gather crucial information. They agreed to meet at a restaurant, where Young-hee revealed Gilsoo's character as someone who would do anything for money, including murder. She also disclosed Gilsoo's connections with numerous gangsters, making it challenging to escape his clutches. In an attempt to raise money, Bumsuk stole his father's watch to sell it. Finally, 3 days passed since Gilsoo's threats, and they convened in a room. Bumsuk managed to collect the $15,000 from selling the watch, but when he claimed it was from his father, Cien and Soo were skeptical, doubting that Bumsuk's father would willingly provide such a sum. Even though they had the money, they refused to give it to Gilsoo without a fight and decided to involve the police. Cien shared valuable information he had obtained from Young-hee. Apparently, Gilsoo ran an illegal gambling site for minors, particularly high school students. Players received $50 for each account they registered on Gilsoo's site, which was operated overseas. Young-hee revealed that the gambling site was a scam, luring players with initial wins and bonuses, only to exploit their addiction and eventually cheat them out of their money in subsequent games. Where there were gambling sites, Gilsoo's gang was sure to be present. When players ran out of money, Gilsoo's gang would approach them, offering loans to continue gambling. As a result, players would accumulate debts they couldn't pay off, having lost all their money on the gambling site. This was one of Gilsoo's sinister strategies, exploiting children to foster gambling addiction, making them borrow money and use their valuables as collateral, such as cars and gold bars. Young-hee also disclosed to Cien that Gilsoo kept his valuables, including transactions and drugs, in a secure strongbox. Learning this, Cien intended to call the police and take them to the location with all the evidence inside that strongbox, leading to Gilsoo's arrest. After school, Gilsoo and his gang awaited Cien and his friends. Soo, determined to meet Gilsoo alone, planned to discuss the gambling site and gather information for the police. Upon arrival, Soo would inform Cien of his whereabouts, allowing Cien to contact the authorities. Initially surprised that Soo knew about his gambling site, Gilsoo reluctantly agreed to take Suhu to his office. However, before leaving, Young-hee informed Gilsoo that she would stay at the school to wait for Bumsuk and Cien. Young-hee met Cien to provide the address of Gilsoo's office. Cien realized that Soo didn't need to go with Gilsoo to obtain the address. While Bumsuk was concerned about Suhu, wanting to follow him in a taxi, Cien allowed him to go, wishing to verify whether Young-hee had provided the correct address. Meanwhile, Sukdae interrogated Young-hee for revealing crucial information to Cien. Young-hee expressed her dissatisfaction with Gilsoo, planning to contact the police, stating she couldn't endure Gilsoo's pressure forever. Soo arrived at Gilsoo's office and promptly gave Cien the address. It matched the one Young-hee had provided. Upon entering the office, Gilsoo, ever cautious, asked Suhu for his phone, suspecting something was amiss. Suhu refused, and in response, his head was struck with an iron rod, causing him to fall from his chair. Gilsoo eventually discovered Su's plan to call the police and hastily left the premises. When Cien and Bumsuk arrived and encountered Gilsoo attempting to flee, they were unaware of the unfolding events. Bumsuk, trying to defuse the situation, attempted to hand over the money as the situation had escalated. Gilsoo paid no attention to the money and took Bumsuk with him as he left the location. Cien was en route to Gilsoo's office with the police when they arrived, only to find it empty. The search was called off and they realized they lacked an arrest warrant, hampering their efforts. With the policeman's assistance unavailable, Cien resorted to breaking into the house by scaling the wall and forcing the door open. Inside, he was alarmed to discover blood on the floor, fearing it might be Su's blood. He tried calling Suhu, but Su did not answer. Cn was shocked to find that the transactions, drugs, and Gilsu's other valuables in the strongbox had been stolen. He then deduced that Sukdae and Yangji had conspired against him. Gilsu threatened to sell Yanghe's brother Sunshine and announced that Sukdae and Yanghe should not come to Mangdong. Sukdae decided to meet Gilsu and gave his bank card to Yangji, who was tasked with finding a hiding place. Yanghe, however, insisted on accompanying Sukdae, requesting Cn to download a location-sharing application to track their whereabouts. Gilsu and his gang were waiting for Sukdae and Yanghe. They had taken Bumsuk and Suhu as hostages. Cn headed to Yanghe's location, but since Gilsu had discovered Yanghe's betrayal, Sukdae challenged Gilsu to a fight. Due to his severely injured hand, Sukdae struggled to locate Gilsu and was relentlessly attacked by Gilsu. Yanghe, held captive, was unable to assist Sukdae. Gilsu attempted to choke Yanghe, but fortunately, the sound of a police car siren was heard. Gilsu and his gang quickly fled the scene. Cn arrived and urged Gilsu to surrender, claiming that the police had them surrounded. However, Gilsu and his gang returned after Cn helped Bumsuk and Suhu escape. It was revealed that the siren sound was a ruse created by Cn using audio to deceive Gilsu and his gang, making them believe the police would not come. A policeman attempted to arrest Gilsu and his gang at gunpoint, while another chased Sukdae and Yangji. Regrettably, Gilsu managed to elude them. Cn pursued Gilsu alone, engaging in a physical altercation despite his physical disadvantage. His efforts managed to slow Gilsu down. Suddenly, Su arrived and rescued Cn. In a brawl with Gilsu, despite being an MMA fighter, Suhu faced some challenges fighting Gilsu alone. It was Su who managed to defeat Gilsu, leading to the capture of the criminal who had been causing terror among the students. Sukdae turned himself in to the police and advised Yangji and Sunshine to escape. This criminal case would be handled by a lawyer who happened to be an assistant to Bumsuk's father. The lawyer assured Cn's parents that he wouldn't discuss the case with them but would inform Bumsuk's father. Given Bumsuk's family's high status and wealth, anyone who harmed him would face serious consequences. The lawyer even asked Bumsuk to confront Gilsu as he saw fit, even if they were in a police station. Reluctant to harm Gilsu, Bumsuk was told by Gilsu that he was the weakest among their friends. Gilsu also pointed out that Suhu and Yanghe didn't consider him a friend. After Cn left the police station, he found Yangji waiting for him outside. Yanghe wanted to apologize to him and Su. They visited Suhu in the hospital, where Cn informed him that Bumsuk's father wanted to keep the case confidential. It appeared that Bumsuk's father preferred to handle the case as if they were the ones who had captured Gilsu and his gang. Cn was more concerned with Gilsu's arrest, and he was relieved to hear that Bumsuk's father had covered Su's hospital expenses. Apparently, Bumsuk's father, known as Jin Won, was a highly respected member of parliament. As a gesture of gratitude, Yanghe offered to accompany Suhu at the hospital, and even slept on an empty bed. Upon returning home, Cn found himself feeling lonely once more, as no one inquired about where he had been. He decided to return to the hospital, bringing Su's favorite food. Su was taken aback because it appeared that Cn cared about him, despite his typically cold demeanor. At Bumsuk's house, Bumsuk was scolded by his father for involving the police, as it could damage their family's reputation. He was subsequently punished by being struck with a golf club. In school, Cn and his friends were admired by their classmates for capturing Gilsu and his gang. Following the incident, Cn and his friends grew closer and desired to hang out together. Cn informed Bumsuk that Yanghe had become a part of their group and was residing at Suhu's house. Su expressed his intention to invite Yanghe to join their hangouts. Bumsuk felt ignored due to Yanghe's presence and believed he was being excluded from the group. His frustration increased when he discovered that Su did not follow him back on Instagram. Moreover, Su followed Yanghe despite their brief acquaintance, causing Bumsuk to feel marginalized. Bumsuk had retained the money he had earned from selling his father's watch, and when Cn confronted him about it, Bumsuk initially denied any issues. Eventually, Bumsuk confessed that he was upset with Suhu for treating him as a subordinate and not a friend. He once again joined Yang Chan's group, and this time they also socialized with young Ben and his schoolmates at a club. Young Ben was delighted to see Bumsuk and introduced him to his female friends, emphasizing that Bumsuk was a parliament member's son. Upon hearing this, the girls flirted with Bumsuk. Young Ben also introduced Bumsuk to a fighter at his school named Wee Young. They discussed Suhu and expressed their frustration with him, as he often acted like a boss and looked down on others. Young Ben even expressed a desire to get revenge on Suhu. Su picked up Cien from a tutoring session and taught him how to work as a delivery courier. During their conversation, Cien raised concerns about Bumsuk, suspecting that he might be taken advantage of by Yang Chan's group. He believed they were befriending Bumsuk for his wealth. However, Su had a different perspective, thinking that Bumsuk might be the one using Yang Chan's group. As they grew closer, Bumsuk had them do what he wanted, gradually making him a more popular student. Bumsuk became increasingly integrated with Yang Chan's group and felt admired and respected by his new friends. He even moved to a different desk to sit closer to Jung Chan and Tahan. Cien was concerned about Bumsuk, believing that he wasn't a troublemaker and was acting out of loneliness. He asked Yang Chan's group to stay away from Bumsuk and stop taking money from him. But they disregarded his plea, insisting that Bumsuk was the one behind these actions. During lunchtime, the students stood in line to get their lunches when Jung Chan's group bypassed the line. Suhu was annoyed and warned Yang Chan and his friends to wait in line. Bumsuk refused to comply, and Suhu became angry, pushing Bumsuk to the ground. Cien intervened and asked Suhu to stop, and Bumsuk left with hurt feelings. Bumsuk then approached Jung Chan and requested to find someone he could pay to fight Suhu. Jung Chan recommended Wee Young, a classmate known for his fighting skills and plans to join UFC. Bumsuk offered Wee Young $1,000 to confront Suhu, with the fight planned for Suhu's upcoming birthday on Saturday. Wee Young accepted the offer and left the scene. Tahan shared a story about Wee Young being beaten by Suhu in a previous competition. Jung Chan believed that Wee Young would win this time and suggested injuring Suhu to hinder his ability to fight Wee Young. To carry out their plan, they tampered with the brake cable of Suhu's motorcycle while he was working. As anticipated, Suhu had difficulty riding his motorcycle and eventually had an accident. As a result of the accident, Suhu injured his leg, causing him to walk with a limp. Suhu believed that Bumsuk was responsible for the motorcycle incident, but chose not to confront Cien about it. The day was Saturday, also Suhu's birthday, and Cien, along with Yamji, had organized a surprise for him. Bumsuk attempted to contact Suhu to arrange a meeting, but Suhu didn't answer his calls. Instead, Bumsuk messaged Yamji, asking her not to tell anyone, as he planned to surprise Suhu. He didn't inform Suhu and Cien about her meeting with Bumsuk. Initially, Bumsuk acted friendly towards Young-hee, but he soon revealed his ulterior motive. His plan was to take Young-hee as a hostage, which would prompt Suhu to meet him. Suhu and Cien were waiting for Young-hee, who hadn't returned yet. Cien saw Su's phone, which contained messages from Bumsuk, revealing the address where Suhu was supposed to meet him and mentioning that he had taken Young-hee hostage. Cien responded to Bumsuk's messages, stating that he would go there. He deleted the conversation and informed Suhu that he needed to go outside without revealing the reason. Cien arrived at Bumsuk's location alone, armed with a wrench. This surprised everyone, as they were expecting Suhu. Cien confronted Young Chan and his friends with the wrench while Young-hee called the police. Young Ben was pleased to see Cien, as he wanted to get revenge on him, but he was unable to defeat him. Cien tried to fight all of them with a crowbar, but Wee Young arrived and attacked Cien. Suhu attempted to stop Young Ben, telling him that Cien had nothing to do with their issues. However, Young Ben was motivated by personal grudges and didn't listen. Cien was relentlessly beaten up by Young Ben and his friends. Bumsuk couldn't bear to watch and left the scene. Wee Young asked Bumsuk to reschedule his meeting with Suhu and requested payment for defeating one person. Bumsuk didn't request Wee Young to harm Cien. A police siren was heard, and they all fled the scene, leaving Cien on the ground. Suhu was absent from his birthday party, which worried Su. Cien was taken away in an ambulance, and Young-hee informed the police about the situation. Cn woke up from his unconscious state and explained that he was alone, emphasizing that the incident had been accidental. Bumsuk also instructed Yangji not to inform Su about the incident. Cn called Bumsuk to warn him to stop his actions. Cn had to be hospitalized due to the incident, and it brought back memories of his parents' arguments from his childhood. His father had not initially wanted Cn in his life, which had left a deep impact on Cn's perception of his father. Although Cn didn't like his father, he kept the truth of the recent fight from him, only mentioning that he fell from a staircase. His father scolded him for recklessness, but grew quiet when Cn opened up about his feelings. Cn asked his father when he started to care about him. At home, Bumsuk blamed himself for Cn having to endure violent attacks from young Ben's group. He stayed in his room and refused to attend school, leading his father to send someone to watch over him. Bumsuk was planning to transfer to a school in the Philippines. Meanwhile, Suhu continued to attend school as usual, unaware of the details of what had transpired. He sensed something was wrong as he couldn't find Cn or Bumsuk at school, and Cn didn't answer his calls. Cn informed Suhu that he was not attending school due to a family issue. Suhu tried contacting Young Hee but received no response. She apologized to Suhu, who then went to Young Hee's house but found it empty. On his way home, Suhu remained puzzled about what was happening. Eventually, Suhu asked Chinchan and Tihan about Bumsuk's whereabouts, as he had no other leads. They claimed not to know where Bumsuk was, and Suhu shared that he wanted Bumsuk to provide money to repair his damaged motorcycle, hinting that he knew Bumsuk was responsible. When Young Chan's group discussed Cn's absence from school due to their actions that night, Suhu overheard and confronted them, demanding to know what happened to Cn. After Young Chan's group revealed the truth, Suhu visited Cn to ask about his return home. Young Hee told Suhu that Cn would be back home tonight. Suhu came to see Cn at his house, and he was relieved to find him. However, Cn hid his wounded hand from Suhu. Suhu informed Cn that they would have exams in one day and expressed hope that Cn could attend school. Bumsuk received another punishment from his father, who was furious and ashamed of his actions. His father urged him not to publicly acknowledge their relationship. Frustrated, Bumsuk decided to leave his home that night. His father's assistant tried to stop him, but Bumsuk ignored him and left in a taxi. The assistant took a picture of the taxi to track his whereabouts. In the meantime, Bumsuk found that his friends had been trying to contact him. He received calls and messages from Suhu. Suhu, accompanied by Young Ben, had been searching for Bumsuk. Suhu was punishing Young Ben while trying to get information about Bumsuk's location. Young Ben claimed he didn't know where Bumsuk was. Suhu then received a phone call from Bumsuk, who asked him to meet at a gym. Bumsuk also contacted Wei Young, a fighter, and asked him to prepare for a fight with Suhu. Suhu arrived at the gym to meet Bumsuk and found Young Chan, Tahan, and others present. Suhu had come to apologize to Bumsuk, stating that Bumsuk should have directed his anger at him and not innocent people. However, Bumsuk rejected his apology, which made Suhu furious. Suhu then accepted Wei Young's challenge and decided to have a fight. They had previously met in a competition where Suhu defeated Wei Young. Initially, both were evenly matched due to their good fighting skills. However, Wei Young, recognizing Suhu's wounded leg from a motorcycle accident, began targeting the left side of Suhu's body. Suhu faced some difficulties due to his injury but continued the fight. During the match, Taehan cheated by pulling Suhu's leg, causing Suhu to lose his focus. Wei Young took advantage of this and delivered a powerful kick to Suhu's head. Suhu fell to the ground, and Bumsuk seized the opportunity to join Jung Chan and Taehan in relentlessly beating Suhu. Bumsuk's assistant and his father's lawyer arrived at the gym and insisted that Bumsuk return home. Bumsuk was forced to comply, leaving the scene. Panic erupted when it was discovered that Suhu had stopped breathing. People fled the area in fear, with the exception of Yin Chan and Taehan, who were held back by Bumsuk's lawyer. The lawyer urged them to testify to the incident to the police. Feeling guilty and upset, Bumsuk cried, thinking that he might have caused Suhu's death. Seeing and Young then searched for Suhu, but couldn't find him. Ultimately, the lawyer handling the case tried to cover up the incident. He instructed those involved to tell a narrative where Suhu simply passed out during exercise, and all evidence, including videos and CCTV, was deleted. The lawyer even pretended to be Suhu to mislead others into thinking he was okay and focusing on his training. The lawyer also gave Bumsuk another severe punishment and threatened him with further consequences when he returned from school in the Philippines. However, Bumsuk was more concerned about Suhu's well-being than his own punishment. The following day, there were exams at school. Suhu did not attend, and Cien, who was back at school for the first time since the incident, was unable to focus on his exam. After finishing his exam, Cien received a message from Yang Yi, who informed him that Suhu was in the hospital. Cien was devastated to hear that Suhu was in critical condition, believing he had died, but Yang Yi clarified that he was in a coma and being treated. Cien immediately left school and rushed to the hospital to visit Suhu. Suhu's grandmother was in his room, and Cien broke down when he saw his best friend lying unconscious. Bumsuk's lawyer delivered the news that Suhu was in a coma but still had a chance of recovery. Bumsuk's lawyer insisted that Bumsuk keep the incident a secret or else they would harm Suhu to protect Bumsuk's father's reputation as a member of parliament. The next day, Cien went to Jizing High School, which was Young Ben's new school. He was looking for Young Ben to find out more about the previous night's events. When Young Ben entered his classroom, Cien suddenly attacked him, repeatedly hitting his head on the desk and stabbing Young Ben's shoulder with a pen. Cien asked Young Ben about what had happened, specifically if Bumsuk was responsible. Young Ben claimed not to know because he wasn't present due to his injuries sustained from Suhu that night. Cien then sought out Weon, attempting to beat him up with an iron stick in his hand. However, Weon was prepared and anticipated Cien's movements, as he was an experienced fighter. They engaged in a fight, with Weon initially looking down on Cien because of his lack of fighting skills. Cien used his intelligence to gain the upper hand, using Weon's own strength against him. He even managed to avoid Weon's attacks, injuring Weon's hand and foot during the fight. Weon tried to offer excuses for what happened that night, but Cien refused to forgive him, further injuring Weon by breaking his foot with a barbel. Meanwhile, Bumsuk and his father were on their way to Bumsuk's school to say goodbye and inform the teachers and students that Bumsuk would be moving to another school abroad. Young Hee intervened and stopped them, asking Bumsuk to take responsibility for what he had done to Suhu. Instead of apologizing, Bumsuk explained that he felt excluded from the group once Young Hee had entered their lives. At Bumsuk's school, teachers were waiting for him and his father because they were aware of who Bumsuk's father was. During this time, Bumsuk was taking an examination. His father inquired about a student who had been severely injured. The teachers explained that the student had passed out during an exercise at the gym. Bumsuk's father concealed his son's involvement, as nobody knew that Bumsuk was responsible. Simultaneously, Suhu returned to school, appearing in his classroom with his uniform covered in blood, shocking his classmates and teacher. In a violent confrontation, Cien attacked both Tin and Ying Chong with a fire extinguisher. Bumsuk, who witnessed the attack, displayed no fear, and Ying Chong tried to help Tin. However, Cien retaliated by hitting Ying Chong's head with the fire extinguisher, causing him to fall unconscious. Cien continued to assault Tahan. In the midst of this chaos, Cien approached Bumsuk, but he was unable to attack him as he still considered him a friend. The emotional turmoil led both of them to burst into tears. Cien left Bumsuk on the floor without harming him any further. Students and teachers at the school were terrified by Cien's actions, as he expressed his frustration with how the school had chosen to keep the incident a secret. Cien returned to the hospital to visit Suhu, who remained in a coma. In his imagination, he and Suhu made amends and apologized to each other for failing to take care of themselves. Meanwhile, Bumsuk began attending a school in the Philippines. As Suhu was still in a coma, Young Hee decided to leave both Suhu and Cien, realizing the impact her presence had on their friendship. Initially, Cien was facing the possibility of being put in a youth detention center for his actions. However, upon Bumsuk's father seeing the video that revealed Suhu's coma, he chose not to report the incident. Instead, he ensured that no school in Seoul would accept Cien. Surprisingly, there was one school that would accept CN, Jiang High School, a low-ranked institution known for its troublemaking students who had tattoos. CN moved to this new school, accompanied by his father and mother. His father consoled him, stating that CN was not entirely to blame for the past. In this new environment, CN was met with the cold stare of a student with tattoos who had been observing him, possibly due to CN's past victory over Wien. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notification for more movie recaps.